Good morning, welcome back. Yesterday, I realized that it's the 250-year anniversary for Jane Austen of her life. She was born in 1775. It'll say in this book right here. She was born in 1775, December 16th, 1775. And so that means this is her 250th year anniversary. And I just found out a Jane Austen North American Society podcast where that guy, John Mullen, was on. He was on the podcast, that podcast. Jane Austen Society of North America, JASNA. It was such a good talk, and they talked about, I think it's so interesting when people can, this John Mullen guy said that he has probably read Emma like 15 times. And every time he gets something new out of it, and they were even just like this is what Harry Potter and the Sacred Text does, just taking paragraphs or sentences and just talking about them. And he was like, oh, when you read that out loud, I thought this whole new thing, the way people's mind, I don't even know, are these people just like in literature? I guess he's a professor, so this is just what he does. And it's so fascinating to hear him talk about, like, in that sentence, you can hear just like, somebody quoted something. Virginia Woolf had this quote about Jane Austen where it was like, she never misses a moment to be sarcastic, which is so funny. They were talking about something in Sense and Sensibility that happened and how the sarcasm was spewing out. And I love a sarcastic gal. I love sarcasm. It's so funny to me. And it's so awkward when people don't get sarcasm. And then they're like, yeah, I was trying to be sarcastic back to you. And this doesn't work. So go check out the Jane Austen Society of North America. They were the ones that led me on to the fact that it is the 250th anniversary of Jane Austen, which, again, I didn't know anything about it. And we just started this here, Jane Austen Society of North America on YouTube. They talk about women writers who inspired Austen, and the one with that John Mullen guy is a close look at Austen's genius, which I think I talked about already, but I actually listened to it, and it's good. That's what they do on Harry Potter and the Sacred Text. They just take, like, little lines, and they're like, oh, it has everything to do with the theme we're talking about. It's magical. It's been a magical time to do this, and I'm so happy that my brain was like, you should read Jane Austen. I don't even know why. I don't even know why. I did just recently go back and watch some of the earlier videos of this. And I hope that I'm getting better at reading out loud, and I hope that the video quality looks a little bit better, even though, what are you going to do? Again, I'm not going to go out and buy stuff, but I think the laptop is better than the phone was way back then, way back in February or whenever this whole journey started. Did it really only start like a month ago? Hold on, let's go back just for a second, just for me and my life. We'll get to reading, I promise. I started reading Jane Austen 2 months ago. Wow. It was just 2 months ago when this all began. Thanks everybody out there for coming along with me. Let's get into Sense and Sensibility. Thank you so much, Jane Austen, for being alive and writing and being so sarcastic and so funny and so smart. Jane, a little hat that comes off, a little bun. Look at how cute, and this little scarf that comes off. Jane Austen Society, not of North America, I think like England, like the official Jane Austen Society, they have a whole merch section. You can go get bonnets from the Regency era. You can go get earrings, Jane Austen earrings. You can go get sweaters. Go check out the Jane Austen Society, like the legit one. There's not legit ones, but like the English Jane Austen Society. They have so much merch there, and it's so cool. I'm gonna get a freaking bonnet. I'm I'm gonna get a Regency era bonnet, and I might just get a Regency era outfit, and I might just go to Bath this September. We're manifesting. We're manifesting Bath this September. We're gonna continue. It's part of my healing journey. It is part of my healing journey to go to Bath. It's part of my recovery, my mental health recovery, to go to Bath this September. And why not? Chapter 10, Sense and Sensibility. We just found out that Willoughby is a bastard. He's a bastard. And he actually, there's a whole thing with Colonel Brandon and his not daughter, but who he like sort of took in, his ward, went off, found a friend to go off with. She got lost. She met up with Willoughby. Somehow this girl Eliza got pregnant, but it wasn't from Willoughby. But right when Willoughby found out she got pregnant, he was like, peace out. And that's who Marianne was in love with. And that's who, hopefully, that all has been told to Eleanor. And hopefully Eleanor is going to maybe tell Marianne all this, but maybe not. We're going to see. We're going to find out right now. Today, we're going to find out what happens by reading. It's incredible. When the particulars of this conversation were repeated to by Miss Dashwood to her sister, she did done told Marianne, Eleanor did, to her sister, as they very soon were. Their effect on her was not entirely such as the former had hoped to see. Not that Marianne appeared to distrust the truth of any part of it. For she listened to it all with the most steady and submissive attention, made neither objection nor remark, attempted no vindication of Willoughby, and seemed to show by her tears that she felt it to be impossible. Denial is a hell of a drug, I've once heard somebody say. I couldn't tell you who. But though this behaviour assured Eleanor that the conviction of his guilt was carried home to her mind, though she saw with satisfaction the effect of it, in her no longer avoiding Colonel Brandon when he called, in her speaking to him, he even voluntarily speaking, she voluntarily spoke to someone when she, with a kind of compassionate respect, and though she saw her spirits less violently irritated than before, she did not see her less wretched. This didn't help the grief at all, but I think she's sort of coming out of her stupor and seeing the error of her ways in love. Maybe. Her mind did become settled, but it was settled in a gloomy dejection. She felt the loss of Willoughby's character yet more heavily than she had felt the loss of his heart. Yeah, like, God, his character. Yeah, I can see that. His seduction and desertion of Miss Williams, the misery of that poor girl, and the doubt of what his designs might once have been on herself, preyed altogether so much on her spirits that she could not bring herself to speak of what she felt even to Eleanor. Which is rare for her, huh? Not to be able to, like, say what she feels. Rare for Marianne. And brooding over her sorrows in silence gave more pain to her sister than could have been communicated by the most open and most frequent confession of them. Eleanor's getting a little taste of her own medicine, somebody being quiet about their emotions, and you're like, huh? Anything? Do you want to tell me anything? No, I just want to be quiet and brood, is what I want to do. To give the feelings or the language of Mrs. Dashwood on receiving and answering Eleanor's letter would be only to give a repetition of what her daughters had already felt and said, of a disappointment hardly less painful than Marianne's, and an indignation even greater than Eleanor's. Long letters from her, quickly succeeding succeeding each other, arrived to tell all that she suffered and thought, to express her anxious solicitude for Marianne. Solicitude and solitude sound so much alike. It's so interesting that they have such different meanings. Solicitude. Nobody uses that word anymore at all. It's just so frequently used in Jane Austen. Just bring it back. We should bring back all this language. To express her anxious solicitude for Marianne and entreat would she bear up with fortitude under this misfortune. Bad indeed must the nature of Marianne's affliction be, when a mother could talk of fortitude. Mortifying and humiliating must be the origin of those regrets which she could wish her not to indulge. Against the interest of her own individual comfort, Mrs. Dashwood had determined that it would be better for Marianne to be anywhere at that time than at Barton, where everything within her view would be bringing back the past in the strongest and most afflicting manner by constantly placing Willoughby before her, such as she had always seen him there. Good point, Mom, good point, Mom, good point. She recommended it to her daughters, therefore, by all means not to shorten their visit to Mrs. Jennings, the length of which, though never exactly fixed, had been expected by all to comprise at least 5 or 6 weeks. A variety of occupations, of objects, and of company, which could not be procured at Barton, would be inevitable there, and might yet, she hoped, cheat Marianne at times into some interest beyond herself. And even into some amusement, much as the idea of both might now be spurned by her. Interest beyond herself, gosh. From all danger of seeing Willoughby again, her mother considered her to be at least equally safe in town as in the country, since his acquaintance must now be dropped by all who call themselves her friends. Design could never bring them in each other's way, negligence could never leave them exposed to a surprise, and chance had less in its favour in the crowd of London, crowd, crowd, than even in the retirement of Barton, where it might force him before her while paying that visit at Adenham on his marriage, which Mrs. Dashwood, from foreseeing at first as a probable event, had brought herself to expect as a certain one. She had yet another reason for wishing her children to remain where they were. A letter from her son-in-law had told her that he and his wife were to be in town before the middle of February, and she judged it right that they should sometimes see their brother. Half-brother married to freaking Fanny. Was her name Fanny? Marianne had promised to be guided by her mother's opinion, and she submitted to it therefore without opposition, though it proved perfectly different from what she wished and expected, though she felt it to be entirely wrong, formed on mistaken grounds that by requiring her longer continuance in London, it deprived her of the only possible alleviation of her wretchedness, the personal sympathy of her mother, and doomed her to such society in such senses as much scenes, society in such scenes, not senses, as must prevent her ever knowing a moment's rest. She only wants the personal sympathy of her mother. But it was a matter of great consolation to her that what brought evil to herself would bring good to her sister. And Eleanor, on the other hand, suspecting that it would not be in her power to avoid Edward entirely, comforted herself by thinking that though their longer stay would therefore militate against her own happiness, it would be better for Marianne than an immediate return to Devonshire. Oh, it just got, cloudy and gloomy. Okay. Yeah, back to Edward. Now that this whole Willoughby business is over, I guess we can focus our attention on Edward, huh? And Lucy Steele? I haven't heard much about that for a while. Her carefulness in guarding her sister from ever hearing Willoughby's name mentioned was not thrown away. Marianne, though without knowing it herself, reaped all its advantage, for neither Miss Jennings nor Sir John, nor even Mrs. Palmer herself, ever spoke of him before her. Even Mrs. Palmer herself. That's so funny. Eleanor wished that the same forbearance could have extended towards herself, but that was impossible, and she was obliged to listen day after day to the indignation of them all. So they're all talking crap about Willoughby in front of Eleanor, but never in front of Marianne. Fine. Sir John could not have thought it possible. A man of whom he had always had such reason to think well, such a good-natured fellow. He did not believe there was a bolder rider in England. It was an unaccountable business. He wished him at the devil with all his heart. I wish him at the devil. He would not speak another word to him, meet him where he might for all the world. No, not if it were to be by the side of Barton Covert, and they would have kept waiting for 2 hours together. Such a scoundrel of a fellow. Such a deceitful dog. A deceitful dog! I love that. It was only the last time they met that he had offered him one of Folly's puppies. And this was the end of it. Mrs. Palmer, in her way, was equally angry. She was determined to drop his acquaintance immediately, and she was very thankful that she had never been acquainted with him at all. She wished with all her heart that Combe Magna was not so near Cleveland. But it did not signify, for it was a great deal too far off to visit. She hated him so much that she was resolved never to mention his name again, and she should tell everybody she saw how good for nothing he was. It's like these people were the people who were like Marianne and Willoughby. The rest of Mrs. Palmer's sympathy was shown in procuring all the particulars in her power of the approaching marriage and communicating them to Eleanor. She could soon tell what a coachmaker's the new carriage was building, by what painter Mr. Willoughby's portrait was drawn, and at what warehouse Miss Grey's clothes might be seen. The calm and polite unconcern of Lady Middleton on the occasion was Anne happy. So glad that changed, where we don't have to do Anne in front of an H, because that is so crazy in my brain. Like, it feels like a mountain to go over. Anne happy. I don't know why. I get that it sounds like a vowel, but to pronounce the H after a Anne happy, I don't know. You're really throwing me for a loop here, Jane. An occasion was an happy relief to Eleanor's spirits, oppressed as they often were by the clamorous kindness of others. It was a great comfort to her to be sure of exciting no interest in one person, at least among their circle of friends. A great comfort to know that there was one who would meet her without feeling any curiosity after particulars or any anxiety of her sister's health. Every qualification is raised at times by the circumstances of the moment to more than its real value, and she was sometimes worried down by officious condolence to rate good breeding as more indispensable to comfort than good nature. If I never hear the words good breeding again, I'll be happy. Lady Middleton expressed her sense of the affair about once every day, or twice, if the subject occurred very often, by saying, "It is very shocking indeed." Oh my God. And by the means of this continual though gentle vent, was able not only to see the Miss Dashwoods from the first without the smallest emotion, but very soon to see them without recollecting a word of the matter, and having thus supported the dignity of her own sex, and spoken her decided censure of what was wrong in the other, she thought herself at liberty to attend to the interest of her own assemblies, and therefore determined, though rather against the opinion of Sir John, that, as Mrs. Willoughby would at once be a woman of elegance and fortune, to leave her card with her as soon as she married. Leave her card with her as soon as she's married. Is she gonna tell Mrs. Willoughby the tea? I don't know what that means. I wish I knew what that meant. I wish John Mullen were here just sitting next to me going, and that is funny because of this. Why you should really read that whole paragraph again is because of this. That'd be nice. Maybe that's what teachers were supposed to be doing, but instead they were like, Why do you think the light in Great Gatsby was green? It's because of jealousy. Moving on. Okay. Colonel Brandon's delicate, unobtrusive inquiries were never unwelcome to Miss Dashwood. He had abundantly earned the privilege of intimate discussion of her sister's disappointment by the friendly zeal with which he had endeavoured to soften it. They always conversed with confidence. His chief reward for the painful exertion of disclosing past sorrows and present humiliations was given in the pitying eye with which Marianne sometimes observed him, and the gentleness of her voice whenever, though it did not often happen, she was obliged, or could oblige herself, to speak to him. Obliged to speak to this man. These assured him that his exertion had produced an increase of goodwill towards himself, and these gave Elinor hope of its being farther augmented hereafter. But Mrs. Jennings, who knew nothing of all this, who knew only that the colonel continued as grave as ever, and that she could neither prevail on him to make the offer himself, nor commission her to make it for him, began at the end of 2 days to think that instead of midsummer they would not be married until Michaelmas. It's pronounced Michaelmas. And by the end of the week that would be not a match at all. I forgot what Michaelmas was. We're celebrating the birth of Saint Michael, and it's also in September. Michaelmas. It's also in September. Christian festival observed by Western Christian liturgical blah 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 blah. Eastern Michaelmas. Why is Michaelmas signifies the end of the harvest? Oh yeah. The end of the harvest and the start of autumn and the beginning of shorter days. Michaelmas. That's right. It's in September. Let's celebrate it this year, everyone. Saint Michael defeated Satan? What? One legend from the British Isles holds that when Saint Michael defeated Satan, he cast Satan into a particularly prickly blackberry bush. It's okay. I did grow up in the church, but I didn't grow up. Is this more of a Catholic thing, you think? Because I didn't really learn a lot about the saints, and I kind of forgot what Saint Michael was the saint of, but this is, I mean, it reads like a cartoon. It does. It's like he cast him into a particularly prickly blackberry bush. And like Satan is just stuck in this blackberry, like Satan, who can like whatever Satan does, evil, and he's like, I'm in a blackberry bush. You're stuck in a blackberry bush? A particularly prickly blackberry bush. Ooh, ouch. Poor Satan. What? A tale that developed into the practice of making blackberry jam and pies leading up to Michaelmas, and avoiding the berries once the feast had passed. Oh, avoid blackberries after Michaelmas, everybody. Now, is Satan in the blackberry jam, or we avoid the berries after the feast because Satan is in the bush now? Oh my god, that's really funny. Saint Michael and all the angels on September 29th. Okay, back to reading. That tickled me so much. Saint Michael cast him into a particularly prickly blackberry bush. Ooh. Okay, sorry, Michaelmas. The good understanding between the Colonel and Miss Dashwood seemed rather to declare that the honours of the mulberry tree, the canal, and the yew arbor would all be made over to her, and Mrs. Jennings had for some time ceased to think that at all of Mr. Ferrars. Honours of the mulberry tree, the canal, all over to her. Early in February, within a fortnight from the receipt of Willoughby's letter, Elinor had the painful office of informing her sister that he was married. She had taken care to have the intelligence conveyed to herself as soon as it was known that the ceremony was over, and she was desirous that Marianne should not receive the first notice from the public papers, which she saw eagerly examining every morning. Thank God for Eleanor. She received the news with resolute composure, made no observation in it, and at first shed no tears, but after a short time they would burst out, and for the rest of the day she was in a state hardly less pitiable than when she first learnt to expect the event. The Willoughbys left town as soon as they were married, and Eleanor now hoped, as there could be no danger of seeing either of them, to prevail on her sister, who had never yet left the house since the blow first fell, to go out again by degrees, and she had go out again by degrees as she had done before. Yikes, she hasn't even left the house because she's too afraid to run into them. Yikes. For a fortnight. About this time, the two Miss Steeles, lately arrived at their cousin's house in Bartlett's Building. We're in chapter 10. Bartlett's Building. Off Fetter Lane. These buildings were named after their owner, Thomas Bartlett. There you have it. Holborn presented themselves again before their more grand relations in Conduit and Berkeley Street, and were welcomed by them all with great cordiality. Eleanor only was sorry to see them. Their presence always gave her pain, and she hardly knew how to make a very gracious return to the overpowering delight of Lucy in finding her still in town. Lucy. I should have been quite disappointed if I had not found you here still, said she repeatedly, with a strong emphasis on the word still. But I always thought I should. I was almost sure that you would not leave London yet a while, though you told me, you know, at Barton that you should not stay above a month. But I thought at the time that you would most likely change your mind when it came to the point. It would have been such a great pity to have went away before your brother and sister came, and now to be sure you'll be in no hurry to be gone. I'm amazingly glad that you did not keep your word. All those are very italicized. Your word. Eleanor perfectly understood her, and was forced to use all of her self-command to make it appear that she did not. Well, my dear, said Mrs. Jennings, and how did you travel? Not in the stage, I assure you, said Miss Steele. For the distinction between the stage-coach and the chaise. She travelled in a chaise and not a stage-coach. Not in the stage, I assure you, replied Miss Steele with quick exultation. We came post all the way, and had a very smart beau to attend us. Miss Dr. Davies was coming to town, and so we thought we'd join him in the post-chaise, and he behaved very genteelly, and paid 10 or 12 shillings more than we did. Oh, ho, cried Mrs. Jennings, very pretty indeed, and the doctor is a single man, I warrant you. Okay. There now, said Miss Steele, affectionately simpering, affectedly simpering. Everybody laughs at me so about the doctor, and I cannot think why. My cousins say they are sure I have made a conquest, but for my part I declare I never think about him for 1 hour's end to another. Lord, here comes your beau, Nancy, my cousin said the other day, and when she saw him crossing the street to the house, my beau indeed, said I cannot think you mean. The doctor's no beau of mine. Aye, that is very pretty talking, but it won't do. The doctor is the man, I see. No, indeed, replied her cousin, with affected earnestness. Everything is affected simpering, and affected earnestness. And I beg you will contradict it if I ever hear of it talked of. Yeah, she has to really warn Mrs. Jennings, like, do this when you're talking about it, because I know you will be talking about it, because you're gossipy. Is there a girl's name that starts with G? Gossipy Galinda. Mrs. Jennings directly gave her the gratifying assurance that she would not, and Miss Steele was made completely happy. That's how you deal with Mrs. Jennings. You say, can you please contradict this when you're out and about and you hear of this? Thank you. Don't spread the rumor. God, Mrs. Jennings. My screen just went away. That was terrifying. Terrifying to see the forest and the trees on my screensaver. I suppose you will go and stay with your brother and sister, Miss Dashwood, when they come to town, said Lucy, referring, after a cessation of the hostile hints, to the charge. No, I don't think we shall. Oh, yes, I dare say you will. Elinor would not humour her by a farther opposition. Wow. She says, no, I don't think so. And she said, yeah, I think you will. Because of this doctor business, she's supposed to be engaged to freaking Edward. What a charming thing it is that Mrs. Dashwood can spare you both for so long a time together. Long a time indeed, interposed Mrs. Jennings. Why, their visit is but just begun. Lucy was silenced. Lucy's trying to get rid of these two. Because of Edward Ferrars. Whoa. I'm sorry we cannot see your sister, Miss Dashwood, said Miss Steele. I'm sorry she's not well. For Marianne had left the room on their arrival. You are very good. My sister will be equally sorry to miss the pleasure of seeing you, but she has been very much plagued lately with nervous headaches, which make her unfit for company or conversation. Oh dear, that is a great pity. But such old friends as Lucy and me, I think she might see us, and I am sure we would not speak a word. Not speak a word. Yeah. It's that thing when people are like, yeah, but it's me, but it's us. Like, she can come down for us, right? And it's like, no, she doesn't want to see anybody. Yeah, but we're, like, good friends. No, she doesn't want to see anybody. Yeah, but it's us. She has headaches. She's not feeling well. Yeah, but she can see us, right? Elinor, with great civility, declined the proposal. Thank you, Elinor. Her sister was perhaps laid down upon the bed or in her dressing gown, and therefore not able to come to them. Oh, if that's all, cried Miss Steele, we can just go as well and see her. Elinor began to find this impertinence too much for her temper, but she was saved the trouble of checking it by Lucy's sharp reprimand, which now, as on many occasions, though it did not give much sweetness to the manners of one's sister, was of advantage in governing those of others. Elinor began to find this impertinence too much for her temper, but she was saved the trouble of checking it by Lucy's sharp reprimand, which now, as on many occasions, though it did not give much sweetness to the manners of one's sister, was of advantage in governing those of the other. Sister. Okay, I see. I think we only have... See, my book... No. There's a volume 3. There's a volume 3. Wow. Okay, there's a volume 3. We're on volume 2, chapter 11. Coming up next time on Emily's Reading Corner, reading Sense and Sensibility, Chapter 11 of Volume 2 of Sense and Sensibility. Thank you so much for watching. Happy reading and ta-ta!